Hello everyone and welcome to this week's pre-lab. This time you'll be making non-crystalline candies, which essentially are just a super saturated sugar solution. One in fact that is so saturated that the sucrose molecules can't form crystals as it cools down to room temperature. We'll then be pouring that out onto wax paper and making lollipops out of that, so this is a version of hard candy that you'll be making this week. The supplies you'll need are of course a saucepan. You'll need two of those so that you can make two different varieties at the same time, and two burners also. You'll need a whisk for whisking your sugar syrup solution. You'll need a 1 cup measure. You'll need a 1/4 cup measure, a 1 tablespoon measure, a 1/2 teaspoon measure, and a 1 cup measure. You will also need a candy thermometer. This one's digital. You'll need a set of metal measuring spoons for doing the cold water test. Of course, you'll need a cup of cold water. We can make that up in the freezer. I'll have that available for you. You'll also need a sheet of wax paper for pouring out your candy. You'll need some cooking spray to put onto that. And of course, you can't make a good lollipop without some wooden sticks to stick into them. Those are the supplies you'll need. The foods that you'll need: sugar, since we're making a super saturated solution of sugar. The other variety you're going to make is a sugar substitute version of non-crystalline candy, and for that we'll be using Splenda. So the two saucepans that you'll need and the two burners you'll need are so that you can make one with sugar and you can make one with Splenda. You'll also need corn syrup and water. That's all you need to make your solution. And then once it boils, before we cool it down, we'll put a few drops of peppermint oil into that and a few drops of food coloring. So to begin, you'll need 1 cup of sugar. And put that into your saucepan. Then you will need a 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of corn syrup. So here's our 1/4 cup. Pour that in and let it run out. It's a little sticky, so it'll take a second to all run out. And then you'll need 2 more tablespoons. Keep in mind that corn syrup is a mixture of fructose and glucose molecules. That's going to interfere with the sucrose forming crystals in the solution. Regular table sugar is sucrose, which is a disaccharide. Corn syrup is just those two saccharides split up, glucose and fructose. After that, you'll need a 1/2 cup of water. And at this point, you can turn the heat on. We can turn it on to high heat for now because we want to heat it until it boils. And until it does boil, you'll want to stir it continuously. So I'm going to use the whisk for that, and I'm just going to constantly stir this and bring it up to a boil. Once your solution begins to boil, you can turn the temperature down a little bit so that it just simmers. We don't want to keep on boiling at this point, but we do want to keep it at a rapid simmer because that simmer is going to boil off the water, which will concentrate our sugar solution more and more. And as our sugar solution concentrates, the temperature will rise. So we'll just turn on our thermometer, clip it to the side here, and just keep an eye on it until it gets to 310 degrees. This will be the hard crack stage, which we can test with a cold water test. So to recap, to make non-crystalline candy, you'll need 1 cup of sweetener. You'll be using either granulated sugar or Splenda. And if you use 2 burners and 2 saucepans, you can make both variations at the same time. To your 1 cup of sweetener, you'll add a 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of corn syrup and a 1/2 cup of water. Mix these together in your saucepan and stir them, keeping the stirring constant over high heat until your solution comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, you can stop stirring it, affix the thermometer, and then monitor from there and turn the heat down to about half at that point. You don't want to stir it during this time period because you don't want to splash anything up on the sides that could serve as seed crystals for crystallization during the next step when you cool it down. Once your thermometer reaches 300 degrees, you can scoop out a little bit of your solution with one of the metal measuring spoons and drop that into a measuring cup of cold water. This is just to verify that you have reached the hard crack stage of candy preparation. When it gets up to 310 degrees, go ahead and remove it from heat, and at this point you can stir in the half teaspoon of the mint extract and add a drop of food coloring if you would like. Stir that in very quickly and then drop your solution using a metal spoon onto oiled wax paper. Do make sure that you oil the wax paper or else it'll soak through the wax paper and stick to the counter and you'll never get it off. Right. At this point, you can also, if you wish, press a stick into your drops of candy in order to make a lollipop. It cools very quickly and hardens, so make sure that you kind of lift it off the wax paper as soon as it hardens, which should only take a few seconds, or else it'll stick to the wax paper and you'll get wax paper on your candy as well. And that is how you make non-crystalline candy. Now that our saturated sugar syrup has reached 300 degrees, it should be in the hard crack stage. We can verify this by taking a scoop of it with a metal spoon and putting it into our ice cold water. If, when dropped in the ice cold water, it forms thin threads that are then brittle, we know we're in the hard crack stage. Indeed, if I pull these threads out of the water, we can see that they snap and are brittle. We're fast approaching 310 degrees and we verified that we're in our hard crack stage. So at this point we can take our thermometer out, set that to the side, we'll add in a half teaspoon of our peppermint syrup, and a drop of food coloring. I'm using green since it's peppermint, seems to make sense. And we'll use our whisk to hurry up and whisk that into our solution. Did I say green? This looks more yellow to me. At this point, we are ready to put it on our wax paper and create our lollipops. Candy in a hard crack stage like this is brittle enough to form something, hard candies like the lollipops that we're going to make, or a brittle or a toffee as well. Before you put it onto your wax paper, make sure that you spray it with cooking spray, or else it will stick to the paper and to the counter as well. Now we can take one of our larger metal measuring spoons, scoop it out, and onto the wax paper it goes. I'll make these about 3 at a time because they cool pretty quickly. So you want to make sure that you get your toothpicks in them in plenty of time. After just a few minutes, you should have something that you can lift off of your wax paper and look sort of like a sucker. You'll have two varieties, of course. You'll have the one you made with the regular sugar, and you'll have the one that you made with the Splenda. So now it's time to evaluate them. Evaluate them based on the way they look. Right? Did they turn out about the same? Based on the flavor, tastes like a lollipop, and of course, the hardness. Be careful though. Hard crack candy such as these could break a tooth, so be careful. All right, kids, that's another successful lab. We'll see you on Friday.